Before he was born, he was chosen, endowed by God with supernatural strength, born to liberate his people, destined for greatness, but a weakness, forbidden passion. Lost everything.
The Philistines are upon you.
His strength, his sight, his freedom. In his darkest hour, he cried out to God one last time.
Lord God, remember me, I pray, and strengthen me just this once.
His strength was legendary, his fall a warning, his end redemption. These were difficult times for the children of Israel. Once again, they had turned away from the Lord their God, and he delivered them into the hands of their enemies, the Philistines, a warrior people who lived by the coast. For 40 years, Israel suffered under Philistine oppression. But even in the darkest times, God prepares his plans for deliverance. There was a man from Zorah, from the tribe of Dan, named Manoah, and his wife was barren. She had never been able to have children, which was a great sorrow in those days. And one day, the angel of the Lord appeared to this woman. She was afraid and amazed. The angel said,
"Behold, you are barren and have never borne a child, but you shall conceive and give birth to a son. Now therefore, be very careful. Do not drink wine or strong drink, and do not eat anything unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and give birth to a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb."
To be a Nazirite meant to be consecrated, set apart for God in a very special way, following strict rules as a sign of that dedication. And this child would have a divine mission.
"And he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines."
The woman ran and told her husband what had happened. She described the visitor as a man of God, with an awe-inspiring appearance, like that of an angel of God, and she repeated the instructions about the child that was to be born, along with the rules she was to follow. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord, saying,
O Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come to us again, and teach us what we shall do for the child who will be born.
And God heard Manoah's prayer. The woman was sitting in the field when the angel of God came to her again, but her husband Manoah was not with her. The woman quickly ran to tell her husband. Manoah approached the man and asked,
Are you the man who spoke to the woman?
And he replied,
"I am."
Manoah asked him to repeat the instructions on how to raise the child. The angel confirmed everything he had told the woman. The special diet for her during pregnancy, and the Nazirite rules for the child. No razor on his head, no wine or strong drink, no unclean thing. Manoah, still not fully understanding who he was speaking to, wanted to offer him hospitality, prepare a young goat. But the angel of the Lord said,
"Even if you detain me, I will not eat your food, but if you offer a burnt offering, then offer it to the Lord."
And Manoah, still unaware that he was speaking with the angel of the Lord, asked for his name. The angel answered mysteriously,
"Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?"
Then Manoah took the young goat and the offering and sacrificed them on a rock to the Lord. And the angel performed a miracle before the eyes of Manoah and his wife. When the flame went up from the altar toward heaven, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. When they saw this, Manoah and his wife fell with their faces to the ground, and the angel of the Lord appeared no more. Then Manoah realized it was the angel of the Lord, and he was filled with great fear.
We shall surely die, for we have seen God.
But his wife, with greater faith and clarity in that moment, replied,
If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted our burnt offering and grain offering from our hands, nor would he have shown us all these things, or told us such things as this at this time.
And the woman bore a son, and she called his name Samson. The child grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him mightily in his youth, while he lived in the camps of Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. He was destined for great things. But Samson's first major decision as a young man was impulsive and troubling. He went down to Timnah and saw a woman there among the daughters of the Philistines. He returned and told his parents. Samson insisted to them,
I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now get her for me as a wife.
His parents, concerned about God's laws against marrying pagans and the hatred toward their Philistine oppressors, tried to dissuade him.
Is there no woman among the daughters of your own people, among all our Israelite kin, that you must go and take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines, our enemies?
But Samson insisted, led by his desire.
Get her for me, for she pleases me well.
His parents did not know that this, though born of Samson's desire, was ultimately from the Lord. God was seeking an opportunity, a reason, to confront the Philistines through Samson. The story of the mighty judge was just beginning, and it was already marked by the tension between divine purpose and human passion. Despite his parents' doubts, Samson insisted, and they finally agreed to accompany him to Timnah to arrange the marriage with the Philistine woman. So they went on their way to Timnah, and behold, a young lion came roaring toward them. At that moment, the Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson with great power. Though he had nothing in his hand, he tore the lion apart, as one might tear apart a young goat. It was an astonishing demonstration of the strength God had given him. But Samson did not tell his father or mother what he had done. Sometime later, as Samson returned to take the woman to celebrate the wedding, he turned aside to see the lion's carcass. And behold, in the carcass of the lion, there was a swarm of bees and a honeycomb. He scooped out some of the honey with his hands and went on eating as he walked. When he reached his parents, he gave some to them as well, and they ate. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey from the lion's carcass. Perhaps because touching a dead body went against his Nazirite vow, or simply to keep his secret. The day of the wedding arrived, and Samson held a great feast there in Timnah, as young men customarily did. And the Philistines, either impressed by his strength or simply by tradition, brought 30 companions to be with him during the 7-day celebration. During the banquet, Samson came up with a challenge, an enigma based on his secret.
Philistine companions, let me now pose a riddle to you. If you can solve it and explain it to me within the 7 days of the feast, I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. But if you cannot solve it, then you must give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes.
Confident in their numbers and cleverness, they accepted the challenge. Then Samson said the riddle.
Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet.
And after 3 days, they could not solve the riddle. The tension grew, and the Philistines did not want to lose the wager or be made to look foolish. So on the 7th day, or perhaps the 4th, according to some interpretations, they went to Samson's wife and pressured her with threats.
Entice your husband, deceive him, into revealing this riddle to us. If you don't, we will burn you and your father's house. Did you invite us here to rob us?
Terrified, the woman went to Samson and wept before him. She began to pressure and manipulate him emotionally.
You must hate me and don't love me at all. You won't even tell me the riddle you posed to my people.
Samson tried to resist.
Look, I haven't even told my father or mother. Why should I tell you?
But she wept before him for the 7 days of the feast. She pressured him relentlessly, day after day, until finally, on the 7th day, Samson's heart gave in. He revealed the riddle because she had worn him down. And as soon as she knew the answer, she went and told it to her people. On that 7th day, before sunset, the men of the city came to Samson and gave him the answer to the riddle.
What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion?
Samson immediately understood how they had gotten the answer. Furious at his wife's betrayal and the Philistines' trickery, he responded bitterly.
If you hadn't used my wife to get the answer, you would never have solved my riddle.
The Spirit of the Lord came upon him with great power. He went down to the Philistine city of Ashkelon, about 40 kilometers away, killed 30 of their men, took their belongings, and gave the spoils, the bet's reward, to those who had solved the riddle. Burning with anger, he left the feast and his new wife, returning to his father's house. And the bride's father, perhaps to avoid trouble or following local custom, gave Samson's wife to one of his companions, who had been his best man. Samson's first venture into Philistine territory and relationships had ended in betrayal, fury, and bloodshed, just the kind of conflict God would use to begin delivering Israel. Sometime later, during the wheat harvest, Samson decided to visit his wife in Timnah, bringing a young goat as a reconciliation gift. He said to her father,
Let me go to my wife's room.
But her father would not let him enter. Trying to appease him, he said,
I was sure you hated her completely, so I gave her to your companion, the one who stood by you at the wedding. But look, her younger sister is even more beautiful. Please, take her instead.
Samson, feeling he now had clear justification to act against all the Philistines for the wrong done to him, declared,
This time I will be guiltless before the Philistines when I bring harm upon them.
Then Samson went out, caught 300 foxes, and tied them tail to tail with torches between each pair. After lighting the torches, he released them into the Philistines' wheat fields. The fire burned not only the harvested sheaves, but also the standing grain, the vineyards, and the olive groves, a crushing blow to the Philistine economy. When the Philistines demanded to know who had done this, they were told,
It was Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because his wife was taken and given to his companion.
Enraged, the Philistines marched up and burned the woman and her father alive, blaming them for Samson's retaliation. When Samson learned of this cruel act, he swore vengeance.
Since you've done this, I swear I will avenge myself on you before I stop.
And he struck them down, hip and thigh, as the saying goes. A merciless slaughter, leaving them utterly defeated. After his vengeance, he withdrew to a cave in the rock of Etam. But the Philistines would not relent. They mobilized a massive army, camped in Judah, and spread out toward Lehi, hunting Samson. The men of Judah, terrified, asked the Philistines why they had invaded.
We've come to seize Samson to do to him as he did to us.
So 3,000 men of Judah went to Samson's cave at Etam and pleaded,
"Don't you realize the Philistines rule over us? Why have you brought this upon us? We've come to bind you and hand you over to them."
Samson replied, perhaps with sorrow at his own people's betrayal,
I only did to them what they did to me.
They insisted on binding him. Samson agreed, but on one condition.
Swear to me that you yourselves will not kill me.
They assured him,
"No, we will only bind you and deliver you to them. We won't kill you."
So they bound him with 2 new ropes and led him from the rock toward the Philistine camp at Lehi. When Samson arrived at Lehi, the Philistines came out shouting against him. But the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him with mighty power. The ropes on his arms became like flax charred by fire, and the bindings melted away from his hands. Finding a fresh jawbone of a donkey nearby, he reached out, grabbed it, and struck down 1,000 men with it. An unimaginable feat, achieved with a makeshift weapon and the power of God. Then Samson proclaimed his victory in a taunting poem.
With the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men.
But after his great triumph, Samson was overcome with thirst, near death. He cried out to the Lord,
"You have given this great deliverance through your servant. Must I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?"
Then God split open the hollow at Lehi, and water gushed out. Samson drank, his strength returned, and he revived. So he named that place En-Hakkore, the spring of the one who cried out. After this victory, Samson judged Israel for 20 years during the Philistine oppression, serving as God's deliverer, though in his own impulsive, unpredictable way. Yet Samson didn't always use his strength for Israel's liberation. On one occasion he went to Gaza, a major Philistine city, and spent the night with a prostitute. The Gazites were alerted. They surrounded the house and set ambushes at the city gate all night, whispering,
"At dawn we'll kill him."
But Samson only slept until midnight. Then he rose, not to sneak away, but to march straight to the city gates. With terrifying strength, he tore loose the gates, their posts and the bar, hoisted them onto his shoulders, and carried them all the way to the hill facing Hebron, miles away in Judah's territory. It was an insulting humiliation for Gaza. The Philistines awoke to find their city defenseless, its gates gone. Samson was strong, but still playing with fire, flirting with enemies and forbidden desires. Narrator. After Gaza, Samson fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, Delilah. A passion-driven choice, this love would become his undoing. The Philistine rulers, desperate to defeat Samson, saw their chance. They went to Delilah with an irresistible offer.
Deceive him, Delilah. Persuade him to reveal the secret of his great strength and how we might overpower him to bind and subdue him. Each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver if you succeed.
It was an enormous sum, a veritable fortune. Greed took root in Delilah's heart, overshadowing any affection she might have felt for Samson. Thus began her scheme to uncover the secret of the world's strongest man. Delilah began pressing Samson.
Samson, my love, I beg you to tell me, what is the source of your great strength? How could one bind you to subdue you?
Samson, perhaps sensing danger, or simply wanting to play along, decided to deceive her with a false answer.
If they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings not yet dried, then I'll become weak like any other man.
Delilah obtained 7 fresh bowstrings. As Samson slept, she bound him with them. Philistine warriors waited hidden nearby. Then she shouted,
Samson, the Philistines are upon you.
But Samson snapped the bowstrings as easily as a thread of tow breaks when it touches fire. His secret remained undiscovered. Delilah, pretending to be wounded, reproached him.
You've mocked me and told me lies. Now please reveal how you could truly be bound.
Samson gave her a second false answer.
If they bind me tightly with new ropes that have never been used, I'll become weak, just like any other man.
Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them. Then she shouted again,
Samson, the Philistines are upon you.
While spies waited in hiding, but he snapped them off his arms like a thread. Delilah pressed him a third time.
You've deceived me and lied to me all along. Now tell me, how can you truly be bound?
Samson, perhaps growing careless or underestimating the danger, gave a third false answer, this time hinting at his hair, but still not revealing the full secret.
If you weave the 7 braids of my hair into the loom's warp and tighten them with the weaver's pin.
She lulled him to sleep, wove his 7 braids into the loom, and secured them with the pin. Then she cried out,
Samson, the Philistines are upon you.
But he woke up, yanking the loom's pin and tearing free the woven braids. He remained invincible. Frustrated, Delilah turned to relentless emotional manipulation. Day after day, she wore him down, perhaps weeping and pleading.
How can you say I love you when your heart isn't with me? You've deceived me 3 times and still won't tell me the secret of your strength.
Day after day, as she pressed him with her words and wearied him with her relentless pleas, Samson's soul was worn down to mortal anguish. His resistance crumbled. The mighty man was conquered, not by physical force, but by the persistence of temptation and the weakness of his own heart. Finally, Samson revealed his whole heart to Delilah. He confessed the secret of his consecration to God.
No razor has ever touched my head, for I have been a Nazirite to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me. I would become weak, like any other man.
When Delilah saw he had entrusted her with his whole heart, she summoned the Philistine lords, saying, Come at once. He has told me everything. The Philistine lords arrived, bringing the promised silver. She lulled Samson to sleep on her knees, then called for a man to shave off the 7 braids of his hair. As she began to torment him, his strength left him. Then she cried out, this time in triumph,
Samson, the Philistines are upon you.
He awoke from his sleep, thinking, I'll shake myself free as before. But he did not know the Lord had departed from him. His strength had never been magically in his hair, but in his Nazirite covenant with God. By betraying his vow, revealing the secret, and allowing his hair to be cut, he broke that covenant. God withdrew his supernatural power. The Philistines seized him effortlessly. In brutal vengeance, they gouged out his eyes, ensuring their enemy would remain helpless and humiliated. They dragged him to Gaza, the very city whose gates he had once torn away. There, they bound him with bronze chains and forced him to grind grain in the prison. The world's strongest man, God's chosen judge, was now a blind slave, reduced to the lowest labor, a spectacle of defeat. Yet amid his suffering, something went unnoticed by the Philistines. His hair began to grow back. The outward sign of his vow was slowly restored, though his strength had not yet returned. Later, the Philistine lords gathered for a great feast to sacrifice to Dagon, their god. Drunk with triumph, they roared,
"Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands. Dagon has given us victory over the one who ravaged our land and slaughtered our people."
As their hearts grew merry with wine and revelry, cruel idea took hold, to heighten their amusement with humiliation.
"Bring out Samson to entertain us. Let the strong man play the fool."
They dragged him from the prison, forcing him to perform, as their mockery echoed through the temple. They taunted his blindness, his lost strength, his utter disgrace. After parading him, they positioned him between the two central pillars supporting the roof. Then Samson whispered to the young guide leading him,
"Place my hands on the pillars that hold up this temple. Let me lean against them."
The boy obeyed. The temple overflowed. Lords and commoners packed below, while 3,000 more watched from the rooftop. In that moment, the weight of his wasted gifts, his sins, and the God who had once empowered him crashed upon Samson. With a final, desperate plea, he cried out,
"O Lord God, remember me, I beg you. Strengthen me just this once. Let me pay back the Philistines for my 2 eyes."
His hands found the pillars. He braced his body between them, one hand on each, and summoned every ounce of divine strength granted in that last breath.
"Let me die with the Philistines."
Then he pushed with all the strength God gave him in that final moment. And the house collapsed on the rulers and all the people inside. This last act of sacrifice and vengeance was the deadliest of his entire life. Those whom Samson killed in his death were far more than those he had killed during his whole life, including the entire leadership of the Philistines gathered there. His brothers and all his father's household came down, took his body, and brought it back. They buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol, in the tomb of his father Manoah. Thus ended the life of the strong and conflicted judge. He had judged Israel for 20 years. Samson, a name that evokes incredible strength, but also tragic weakness. A man chosen by God before birth, consecrated as a Nazirite, empowered by the Spirit to begin the deliverance of Israel. But also a man often driven by impulse and ruled by passion, who toyed with his consecration and paid a terrible price for it. His life is a powerful lesson about divine gifts and human responsibility. It warns us that external strength means nothing without inner character, and that sin and compromise with the world can neutralize the power of God in us. It reminds us of the devastating consequences of breaking our covenant with God. But even in his fall and death, Samson's story is not merely a tragedy. It is also a testimony of God's sovereignty, how he uses even flawed instruments and their mistakes to fulfill his purposes. And it's a glimpse of redemption, where, in his final act, humbled and wholly dependent on God, Samson finally fulfills the mission for which he was born. striking a fatal blow to the Philistine leadership and paying the price with his own life. He began the deliverance, paving the way for others to come. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the intense and complex life of Samson, the Nazirite judge. If this biblical story has impacted and taught you something, we invite you to give it a like and share it. Your support means a lot to us. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more deep and engaging explorations of Scripture. Coming up next,